Hey Bookaholics, it's Isabel and welcome to another video. So today I'm going to be ranking the Weasleys from best to worst. So I might be getting some people angry, so if you are, yell at me down in the comments please and let me know your thoughts. But yeah, let's just get right into it. So the worst Weasley, in my mind, the absolute worst, is Ginny Weasley. I can already hear the screams, but Ginny Weasley is not my favorite. She is my least favorite of all the Weasleys, mostly because she just never really had a true character in my mind. I did watch the movies before I read the book, so I might be influenced by that because she didn't really have a character in there either. But in the books as well, when I was reading it, she just kind of all of a sudden became like very, very good at like magic. We just didn't see her for a while, and then all of a sudden in book 5 she was like fantastic at the one spell that she's really good at. I can't remember what it's called, but she was just so fantastic at that, and she was, I don't know, she just came out of nowhere. And then the romance in book 6 just really kind of nailed the bullet that I just didn't really care for her. And I don't know, she just became my absolute worst Weasley out of all the bunch. So yeah, yell at me in the comments please because I can hear you. The next Weasley, who is my least favorite, is Percy. My next least favorite Weasley is Percy. So this might not come as a surprise because Percy doesn't necessarily always end up at the top of the list, because the fact that he was so disloyal to his family didn't make sense to me, but it also made perfect sense for Percy to do this because he is very, very into authority. Like, he just believes the authority and he will take their side no matter what, and he does in book 5 and 6 and on until he comes to his senses in book 7. But the fact that he like ostracized his family, the fact that he sent a letter to Ron saying do not be friends with Harry Potter, the fact that he was so adamant to this point where he would criticize Arthur, where he would hate on his siblings, to the point where he was on the side that was wanting to hurt them. I understand that in book 7 he was very, very stuck in the ministry and that he did choose to come back and be with his family and protect them, but that does not negate the fact that you betrayed your family. The next Weasley that is my least favorite is Charlie Weasley. Now, there's nothing against Charlie in this, it's just that he wasn't really in the books very often. I think he's awesome because he works with dragons and that's amazing, but there's nothing really that I know about him that would make me put him higher in this list, so he's just kind of there. I will give him that he will help his siblings whenever they need him, because in book 1 when he just gets a letter from Ron saying, oh, come pick up this dragon please, he's like, yeah, for sure. So like, I like that he's like very laid back in that way and will help his family no matter what, but other than that, there's really nothing else that I know about him. The next Weasley on this list is Arthur Weasley. He's a great dad. I think that he's very, very protective and he is wonderful to his kids, but there's also a side of him that is very obsessed with Muggle stuff, that he does put his family kind of on the back burner, in the fact that yes, they have a lot of love and I really admire that. Whether they're poor or not, they still stick together and they are always gung-ho on protecting each other and making sure everything is good. But at the same time, he's not really helping his family at all. He works on his Muggle stuff all the time, kind of neglecting his kids in that way. He is not really ambitious to move on further to help his family not be poor and to give them what they need, especially with the fact that Ron goes to school with a hand-me-down wand that he can't really use very well, but they can afford a owl for Percy when he becomes prefect, but they can't afford a new wand for Ron. They have to give him a hand-me-down. I understand that with poverty you only get what you can give, and the hand-me-down wand is perfect, but the fact that they would put Percy over Ron always kind of naggled at me, since especially this is his first year, you know? They could have been saving for this wand if they wanted to, but they didn't. So I don't know, but I feel like just because author is so obsessed with muggles and he doesn't try hard enough to get them out of it. Like, I don't want to be too criticism of him because they do have a big family and they do have a lot of stuff to provide for them, but at the same time, I do see where Percy was coming from when he said that he doesn't work hard enough to get them out of it, because maybe he could have. He could have been promoted or gotten higher in ministry if he wasn't so obsessed with muggle stuff, you know? So, I don't know. But that's my 2 cents. The next Weasley on this list is Bill Weasley. So Bill Weasley, he's a badass. He is probably one of the coolest Weasley out of all of them because, one, he is working as a curse breaker. 2, he marries Fleur Delacour, which, good for you, Bill. 3, he survived a werewolf attack and now has massive scars that are awesome. And 4, he's just a great brother. He's very protective, but at the same time, we don't see him enough in here, and I kind of wish we would have seen more of what he can do and like his input in the family. Like, I know we're always following Harry, so we couldn't actually do that, but I would love to have like more on the Weasley siblings, you know, and like see their past and stuff, but it's okay, we don't have to, but it'd be nice. The next ones, was gonna separate them, but I think I'm gonna keep them together. That's Fred and George. So Fred and George in here, they are very, very protective and they are very, very ambitious, and I appreciate that from them. They kind of go in their own direction and they fight for it. They open up a joke store because that's what they want to do, despite what Molly and Arthur say. They go for what they want, and I appreciate and I admire that in them. I also didn't want them too high on the list because they're little assholes. So Fred is more of the innovative one. He's the one who helped create most of the jokester things, and he was the one who was the more inventive of the 2, while George was more of the charismatic and the nicer one of the 2. But together, they were vicious. When they were younger, they would torture both Ron and Percy. Like, Percy in the sense of just mocking him so severely that Percy kind of got a complex of it. And then they tortured Ron with burning his tongue with acid pop. They almost got him to make an unbreakable vow. They made him an arachnophobia. Like, they did so many cruel things to Ron, and that made me kind of sad. But I also admire that they're viciously protective of their siblings, even though they are viciously also the ones who were torturing them. They were higher on this list, but I didn't want them number 1 or number 2 because they have their traits that I don't really want to have, so yeah. The next on this list is Molly Weasley. So Molly Weasley is part of the top Weasleys because she's very, very protective again, but she's such a mother hen. I love how she is very, very kind-hearted, but when it comes to her family, man, she becomes a mama bear. Like, she's viciously protective, like in book 7 when she kills Bellatrix. Like, that was probably the badassest thing a mother has ever done. So yeah, I admire her, and I just love how she's a house mother where she loves to cook and loves to baby her kids, and it's just wonderful. But she's also just so badass that I love it. So yeah, she was higher on this list. And as no surprise, since he's the last one, Ron Weasley is my favorite out of all the Weasleys. So this is not just because he is part of the Golden Trio. Ron has so many merits that a lot of people dismiss of him. He is viciously loyal. Like, he is to the point of loyalty where he would throw himself in front of a homicidal murderer, as he did in book 3 when they thought Sirius Black was a mass murderer. He put himself in danger with a broken leg, stood up, and told him that they would have to go through them before they can get to Harry. So like, he's viciously protective. He will push back his fears to help his friends, like in book 2 when he goes into the forest in search of a giant freaking spider with arachnophobia. I have arachnophobia and I know it takes a lot of guts to do that. What also I like about him is that he is probably one of the most human out of all the characters, pretty much, because he has so many issues that we deal with. He has very, very low self-esteem. He likes to push himself back because he's in a family of 7 siblings. One of them is the only daughter. The other ones are all successful in different ways that if he becomes successful in any of those ways, it's no big deal. So I totally understand his self-consciousness. I totally understand his loyalty to his siblings and his friends, and he is probably one of the most relatable characters. And I think that makes him one of the best because then you can actually see yourself through him a bit. You can admire him for his strength and for his weaknesses too, because he has a lot of weaknesses. He's quick to anger, but he's also quick to forgive. He's quick to jealousy, but he's also quick to coming back to his friends. A lot of people hate him because of his abandonment in the Deathly Hallows and in the Goblet of Fire. But I think because we're following Harry a lot, we don't actually get to see what Ron is going through. Because in Goblet of Fire, I don't believe it was just jealousy. I don't believe that it was just the Horcrux in Deathly Hallows. In the Deathly Hallows, I believe Ron was the most affected by the Horcrux because he was the most self-conscious. Especially because Ron is used to having food all the time with Molly Weasley. When they were on the run, they barely had any food. Not getting the same amount of nutrients and the same amount of food affects your mental state a lot. Not getting sleep, not getting all these things, plus being affected by a Horcrux that would attack your self-esteem a lot. Yeah, I totally understand why Ron would blow up. And honestly, because of that blow up, I totally believe that is what made the change in their routine, because they were doing the same things over and over and over again without any change. And even with them realizing that the Gryffindor sword was the way they can destroy a Horcrux, they still had to find that. And what are they going to change? There's so many issues with this that people hate on Ron and think it's just so simplistic, when actually he is probably one of the most complex characters and one of the characters that grew the most in these books. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. That is my ranking of the Weasley family. Let me know your thoughts down below. What is your ranking of the Weasleys? And I'll see you guys for next video. Bye!